You're listening to the Unsure Entrepreneur Podcast with Roger Pierce. Whether you're scribbling business ideas on a napkin or wrestling with the should I, shouldn't I question, get ready to explore the realities, the risks, and the rewards of entrepreneurship as we share the stories, scars, and successes of small business owners.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Unsure Entrepreneur Podcast. I'm your host, Roger Pierce. I'm so excited to introduce my guest here today, and let me tell you a bit about him. Bruce Mayhew is the founder of Bruce Mayhew Consulting, a firm specializing in leadership development, communication training, and organizational growth for over 20 years. A sought-after corporate trainer, keynote speaker, and executive coach, known for his engaging and results-driven approach, Bruce has worked with countless organizations to tackle challenges like helping leaders inspire greatness within their teams, having safe and respectful, difficult conversations, bridging generational differences, and mastering time management. His training is tailored to each client's unique needs, creating practical, actionable strategies that have teams motivated and better equipped to succeed. Now, one client described Bruce's impact perfectly. They said, Bruce not only teaches valuable skills, but transforms the way our team approaches communication and collaboration. With a focus on real-world application, Bruce's training approach combines humor, insight, and actionable techniques that empowers employees and managers to work smarter and thrive together. Welcome to the podcast, Bruce.
It's great to be here.
So much to explore with you here today because not only are you an entrepreneur veteran, but you're in a sector of small business consulting and training and speaking that so many people want to get into. And this is a podcast for people who are, exploring entrepreneurship and all those different avenues. And I know you're going to share some amazing insights and some of your experiences to help people maybe consider those paths. So let's start by talking about the business of consulting, kind of big picture it a bit. Consulting has become a popular business model among startup entrepreneurs, as you know. In the United States, for example, management consulting market has been valued at over $300 billion, reflecting a significant demand for consulting services. That quote from Statista. It's the number one type of service business for many self-employed people. It's the type of business many people currently working in a job somewhere think about starting up. Hey, I'm good at what I do, and I know a lot about a particular topic. Maybe I should quit my job and open a consulting business. So what do you think of that idea? Is it a good path to follow, Bruce?
I wouldn't. It's a scary part of a career path. I'm glad I started it when I did and not now. It's certainly a different market, a different place. And there's a lot of different nuances that you can get to when it comes to communicating your message and getting people's attention and selling yourself. So I'm glad I have the history that I have behind me.
And why do you think it's so popular for first-time entrepreneurs? Is it because it's a fairly easy path? I mean, you don't need a big restaurant or a big retail store. Why is it such a popular choice?
I think they think it's an easy path. There's a lot of people who are good at something. Most of us are good at something. The challenge is being able to monetize it and get enough attention that you can make a living off of it. But yeah, it's easy to put up a website. Like, you don't even need a business card anymore. Like, when I started, a business card is what made you legitimate. And you don't even need a business card anymore. I can't remember the last time anybody asked me for one of my business cards. You just need a website, and then you can go off from there. So it's easy entry. You can set up your business in an hour if you want, but it's the staying power that I think is what surprises people.
What do you mean staying power?
Well, you have to make a living out of it, right? You have to be able to get people's attention, and they have to have confidence that you can deliver what you say, but also what they want. Those are two very different things about what people want and what you can deliver. So it's finding the balance between the two and making people confident that you can deliver what you say and what they need. That's not so easy.
You're talking about expectations.
Absolutely. First, getting their attention, and then it's meeting their expectations during the sales process, and then through the consulting or the training process, you have to meet their expectations and frankly exceed their expectations. And then following the training, you have to make sure that they still like you, that they're going to pay you, hopefully refer you to additional business.
So much to unpack there. It's one of those moments where an entrepreneur goes, oh my God, I got the sale. I got the consulting gig, maybe my first one. What have I done? Now I have to actually go in and deliver on what I promised. It's frightening, isn't it, if you're new to all this?
Yeah, absolutely. And you could be a great salesperson, but it's the delivery that might be the challenge part. Or you could be a great delivery person and the sales part is the challenge part for you. Like the weird thing about being an entrepreneur, I find, is that we have to be everything, right? You have to be the subject matter expert, and you have to be the salesperson, and you have to have at least some basic understanding of IT nowadays. You have to be the time manager, and you have to be able to do the invoicing, or at least have an accountant that can do the invoicing for you. And you also have to, like, everything is all about you. Before I became an entrepreneur, I worked for one of the big banks. And even before I worked for the banks, I always found myself in sales positions. And I always hated sales. But everybody kept saying, Bruce, you're so good at this. And I'm like, yeah, but I don't like it. So the whole idea of working for the bank was to get out of sales. And lo and behold, I found myself in sales again. And then when I finally decided to leave the bank and start my own business, well, here I am being a salesperson again. Because I'm the subject matter expert, because I'm the contract guy, because I'm the presenter and the delivery person, but I still have to sell, right? Which I have to make sure that there's stuff in the pipeline and that people are confident.
I got to jump around a bit here because you touched upon so much stuff. I want to come back to your origin story just to give people some context here. I dug this up online. The website excellentbusinessplans.com ranks consulting, which is what you're in, as the second most popular type of business to start up. I think next to retail store, which I think is a big mistake for a lot of new entrepreneurs. It's so expensive. Popular types of advice to offer as a consultant can be, management, like you do, marketing, IT. There really is no end to the types of consulting services one can provide if you're an expert in that. The website says that it ranks consulting as a business with a moderate to high success rate, especially if offering expertise. That's got to be key. And success in this field is influenced by reputation, network, and client base. We'll talk about sales in a minute. Now, this I found interesting. It said revenue projections range from $150,000 a year to $2 million annually. I would imagine that's for the upper end of the consultants out there.
I'd like to be
with
at
a
that
profit
end.
margin between, yeah, me too, with a profit margin between 10% and 30%. So a pretty healthy outlook, right, for the ones who do well. Any comment on that?
Yeah, I think it's relatively accurate. Just as reference, I see myself more as a corporate trainer and speaker than I do consultant, right? Like I get where the lines are crossed, but I try not to be a consultant, but I do try to provide them solutions from a training perspective. So that's where I like to turn lights on with groups or teams of people and get them thinking about doing things differently, but from a training perspective as opposed to the consulting side. The interesting thing, I wonder how many failures are in that, because I do think that there's a lot of gain in that. I think in my career, in my 20 plus years of doing this, I've seen a whole lot of people start this business or start a business similar to mine. And in 6 months, they accept a full-time job, right? And they leave it behind and are glad to do it. They like the stability of a full-time job. And I get that. I totally get that. It's tough not knowing where your next meal is going to come from.
Very tough, which is, one of the basic messages here on the Unsure Entrepreneur podcast is know what you're getting into.
Mm-hmm.
This is not what you see on Shark's Tank or Dragon's Den, or this is not an overnight success story for a lot of people. 50% of all small businesses in North America fail in 5 years. That can change by sector what you go into, but it is not a life for anyone. There's lumpy cash flow or no cash flow. There's multitasking, as you touched upon. You do everything from, be the salesperson, to be the actual product person,
Mhm.
the delivery device.
Mhm.
You have to do the billing, you have to do the accounting, you have to wash the windows and sweep the floors, get the coffee. There's a lot of stuff to do. I don't want to scare people off entrepreneurship because you and I share this. We believe it's a great career path and a great career choice, but you really have to go into it with your eyes open, don't you?
I love it. I can't imagine doing anything else. And the funny thing is, when I was younger, when I was at university, everybody around me seemed to be thinking, "Hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. I'm going to open up my own business. I'm going to start a plant on blah." Everybody around me seemed to want to do this entrepreneur thing, and I was standing there going, "Absolutely not. Never, ever do I want to be." My job, it was at university, was to go and get a career at a big bank and stay there and collect my pension and my gold watch and get out, right? And that's what I wanted to do for my career, was to stay at a bank. After 9.5 years of wonderful, I ran into awful. That's what made me think, okay, I need to get out of here. And after a lot of thinking, a lot of curiosity, a lot of complete career rewriting, long story short, I started my own business.
That's fascinating. So, was it the need to get out of the bank, the job? Was that what got you motivated, or was it the lure of, hey, I want to be a consultant, trainer, coach? What came first?
The thing that came first was the need to leave. As a good boomer, I'm right on the cusp of boomer and X. As a good boomer, once I decided to leave, it took me 2 years to leave. So for anybody that's in the younger generation profile out there, to think that to take 2 years to leave a job, like that's a whole career for somebody who's a Gen Xer. Yeah, it took me 2 years to decide to leave, and honestly, I left the bank and I went and worked for a small company. So for full transparency, and then it was at that small company that I realized I had a lot more to offer than I gave myself credit for. And that this small business thing really wasn't as terrifying as I might have thought it was. Going from a company of 50,000 people to two people, it still made sense. And I realized that I had a lot more skill and that I had collected over the 10, 12 years of my career that I could apply to this. And I think that's what made me think, yeah, I can do this. Right. And frankly, I was watching somebody else, the guy that I was working for, who had a lot of skill, but really bad time management and values challenge, be successful. And I thought, man, if he can do it, I got to be able to do this.
Was the small business in the sector you're in now?
No, it was not. Yeah, it was in a
So,
completely different sector.
how long were you at the small business?
I gave him 2 years. My agreement with him when I was leaving the bank was because he, like, for good reason, he was skeptical that I would leave 50,000 people and go work for him. And I committed to him that I would work with him for 2 years. And so on my 2-year anniversary, I handed in my notice.
You just described what I think would be one of the perfect transition paths to entrepreneurship. Very cautious, lots of time in there, right? 2 years before you actually quit the big bank job. And then you went to work for a small business, something I really recommend
Mm-hmm.
anybody exploring entrepreneurship go and do, right? Go and live it on someone else's dime,
I
right?
totally
Before you
agree. Yep, totally agree.
jump in with both feet. So you spent not just 6 months, but 2 years at that at that step. You said, okay, I can do this. I'm going to go start my own shop.
Yep, yeah. And it was at about the 1 year
Perfect.
mark with him that I realized that my long-term career wouldn't be with him and that I could do it. Then I spent sort of the next year, the last year with him, working at what would be my business plan. What would be, how would I gain clients? What would be my selling proposition? What is my network? How do I tap into that network? that whole process was really invaluable for me. And again, I'm a cautious guy, right? Like
I can tell.
you know, yeah, you can tell, right? Like, like I'm so cautious, and I totally would recommend this to anybody at all, right? That in that year, and especially within the last 6 months, I made sure that on my first day, on my last day with him, my first day with me, that I had 3 clients. So they weren't
Wow.
enormous, they weren't massive. I was never going to get rich off of them, but they were there. And that gave me the confidence to say, yeah, I can do this. Other people were telling me that I was valuable. It wasn't just me. Other people were telling me that, yeah, I'll give you some money, right? So they were actually going to pay me. That was really comforting for me. Gave me a lot of confidence. But the other thing that did was when I went to my 4th prospect, right? So when I went to a prospect, they could say, yeah, why should I hire you? And I'm like, well, I'm already hired over here. So they've hired me. So you should hire me, right? And it gave them the confidence that I wasn't just some fly-by-night person who got a business card printed and said I'm successful. So it gave my next sale that much more confidence, and then it started rolling. Not to say that there weren't bumpy roads, but it really got it rolling.
Did you save up some money before you took the step into self-employment?
No, actually, it was probably the worst possible time, which, I seem to hear that from so many entrepreneurs. I was in a relationship. So the idea was that I would start this business, but there would always be this other source of revenue coming into the family. And probably within a week of me starting my business, my partner left. So boom, relationship explode. And so here I am on my own now, from a job perspective, on my own from a personal perspective. All the security that I thought that I had, gone. So complete turmoil, complete chaos, but I survived. Somehow I survived it.
Well, it helped that you had those 3 or 4 initial clients to get some cash flow going, I'm
It
sure.
most certainly did. And there's
That's a
nothing
great
like energy that hunger will give you.
the Hunger Games. Yeah, motivation.
Yeah.
You want to eat. I love it. Well, you made a success of it. 20 years now, you've been in business. But
Yes.
let's talk about, because what you do is fascinating. I want to talk about some of your key service areas. And I know on your website you've got so many different services. It's hard to pick some to focus on. But one that caught my eye was email etiquette. You said, I think on a video I saw on the website, 90% of business communication is by email,
Mm-hmm.
and people receive 50 to 250 emails per day. So you help companies and employees deal with all this. Some people have called you the email linguist. Maybe you can tell us how effective email communication can be achieved.
Sure. It's really interesting. And that we also have to recognize that nowadays, like, we have text messages and instant message, and like there's all kinds of other Teams related things that are dinging all over us that are really
And
grabbing
how?
our attention, right? But the email etiquette it was actually the first workshop that I developed on my own, and it still is as relevant today as it was when I first started out. But good email etiquette ends up translating into good time management. So and which is another one of my workshops. So, and I really see email etiquette as being good time management. But email etiquette is really all about your brand. For me, when I'm talking to clients, when I'm doing training to rooms or audiences around email etiquette, I remind people that every time that they hit send on an email, they are impacting their reputation. So is the person on the other end of that email, do they see it as relevant? Do they see them as professional? Do they see them as being an effective communicator? Do they see them as managing their responsibilities and their needs, as well as the needs of the people that they're sending email to, right? So it's got to be a win. Every email needs to be a win-win. It's got to be good for me. It's got to be good for you. It's amazing nowadays, especially I find it has actually got worse as people text because they are used to shorter and shorter bites. It's really hard to be effective and communicate well when you're trying to shove everything into one sentence or two sentences. So good email etiquette really helps the people that I train think about who they're sending it to and what's going to grab their attention, what's going to get their attention. And it's interesting. I listened to your cast about with Patrick McCauley, the point man guy, the PR guy. And it's sort of the same thing where his job is to get other people's attention. His job is to stand out at the news desk for his client. And frankly, I think that's what we should be thinking about every time we hit send. We need to be able to stand out in that 50 to 200 email pile that each of us are getting every day. And if I can stand out, then that means that my email is going to get read, understood, and responded to in an appropriate amount of time.
And it's such an important tool. I mean, a lot of people I know think, oh, email, that's old fashioned. What are you talking about email for? Like you said, there's Snapchat and Insta and all these things. But let me tell you, email is still I'm a marketer. Email is the most powerful and cost effective communication device or vehicle out there. Every dollar an entrepreneur invests in email, they can on average expect a $38 return, 38 to 1. No other form of communication comes close. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is so essential, but many entrepreneurs don't come to the table with some of these communication skills that you're talking about. And even just judging by the amount of emails that we get, we're inundated with bad emails, soliciting emails. Hi, would you like to buy my services? Jumping into the pitch too quick. I mean, there's so many mistakes, aren't there?
Absolutely. Yeah. And it doesn't matter if it's email marketing, still bad. If they're not put together properly, if they're not really written for the needs and the mindset of your reader, you're basically wasting your time. It's amazing how much breakdown there is in that. And the reality, it's a funny reality, Roger. But one of the biggest challenges with email is that as I'm sitting here alone in my office or at my desk and I'm writing an email, and it's the same thing with a text message. Text messages follow the same sort of structure pattern that an email will. So I've seen with clients what I teach in email etiquette training works well for text training or IM training, whatever vehicle you use. But one of the strange realities of email is that when most of us write again, I'll just go to email. When most of us write our email, we write as if we're writing that email to ourselves with our knowledge, our experience, our needs, our pressures, all of us. And it's amazing how that disconnects the real reader that we're sending it to, that they have no idea what to do with the information that we're sending them because they're not us. It's a little bit of a fine tuning that has to happen. It's not major surgery, but a little bit of a fine tuning can take my message and spin it so that, Roger, you understand exactly why I'm sending this to you and why you need to read it or what you need to do. And it's a nuanced little thing, but it's so impactful.
This is one of the things you help people learn how to do. Let's talk about a couple of your other training specializations, mastering time management. I know email ties into that, but that's a big one for entrepreneurs because I don't know about you, probably not you, but I waste too much time. I'm sure I could be a lot more efficient. What are some tips you would provide there?
It certainly is a challenge, and our attention is being summoned in so many different places nowadays. And it's everything from the people that we might work with to our email dinging or an IM going off or whatever it might be. One of the big things that I think people can do from a time management perspective is block their time off. I really don't like using a whole lot of software. I don't like using a lot of tools. I like being able to say, you know what, for now, for the next half hour or from now for the next hour, I'm going to spend reading. or I'm going to spend doing my invoicing, or I'm going to spend doing my strategy plan. And this works really beautifully, whether you're an entrepreneur all by yourself or with two people in your office, or whether you're part of a larger organization, that you really block off your time so that you do your important work, the stuff that if you have a performance review being written on you, that the components of your performance review are the things that you should do in your morning, in the AM. And answering email and being part of meetings and helping other people out with their work, do all of that, be a great team player, do all of that in the afternoon. But we as people, whether you think that you're a morning person or not, we as people are smartest, most creative, most strategic in the morning. And one of the things that I see over and over and over again is people going into the office, turning on their computer, and sitting there for 3 hours or 2 hours answering email, which there's very few email that you and I receive that are 911, right? That are absolutely must answer this minute, right? So unless you're in customer service, very few of our email do we need to answer right now. So why are we wasting our best, smartest brain answering routine email? Shove that into the afternoon. Be smart, be strategic, do your project planning, do your brainstorming, do all of that really heavy lifting of your most important priorities. Do that in the morning.
Don't confuse the urgent with the important. Your advice aligns with what Jeff Bezos does, the head of Amazon. He says he makes all of his big brain decision power meetings and decisions in the morning before lunchtime. He doesn't care what happens after lunch. The big stuff has to happen in the morning when he's sharp.
Absolutely. And there's tons of science that supports that.
I want to ask you very briefly, maybe you could touch upon this generational gaps, how to bridge generational gaps at work. You talk about boomers, you talk about Gen X, you talk about millennials. This is one of the training services you provide.
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny, when I started doing generational differences training 15 years ago, I really thought that it was going to be a sort of a 5-year run on this topic as millennials were really getting into the workforce and making a presence. It still is an important topic that is being requested on a fair amount. And the challenge is that in today's culture, in today's business world, we're now sitting legitimately with 4 different generations all working in the same place. So we have boomers that are still hanging in there, right? Not all of us, but there's a whole bunch of us that are still in the market. Gen Xers are full on. Millennials are an enormous population. So millennials are a larger population than the Gen Xers. So millennials are an enormous population. And those millennials are now becoming serious leaders, right? So they're in their late 30s and 40s. So they are becoming leaders. And then we have Gen Z that are entering into the market now as well. So Gen Zs are up to their late 20s kind of stuff. So Gen Zs are in there. These are 4 very demanding, very educated, very well-traveled, lots of opinion, right? Generations.
Like my daughter, who's just turning 18, yeah.
Yeah, like full of opinion, right? And they're going to take on the world and they want to make a difference. And every single one of those generations wants to make a difference, right? They want to have impact. And it's really interesting working with teams on how to really engage those teams so that they're working with each other as opposed to against each other, and finding a core theme, a core purpose, and a core appreciation for working with each other. And when they do, it really is amazing. But instead, we have to stop the blame game. We have to stop blaming boomers for being stuck. And we have to stop blaming millennials and Gen Zs for being outgoing and wanting to change the world, right? And all four generations have tremendous things to offer. Tremendous. It's getting them to work with each other and appreciate each other that I find exciting.
Fantastic. And this is some of the benefits that'll come out of your training, I know. But before we wrap things up, I want to make you think about your earlier days before you went into this business. I mean, you're a trainer, you're an executive coach, you're a keynote speaker. We didn't get to touch on that, maybe next time. These are all business models that a lot of entrepreneurs would love to have, right? So what's your advice for someone maybe looking to get into this field? Maybe something you did that worked really well, you know?
Yeah. I would say be humble, but also be respectful of what you know, because you probably know something pretty amazing. I've not met anybody that wasn't amazing. I don't care how old you are. There's something about you that's pretty amazing. Sometimes we don't give each other the credit that we deserve. So talk to people around you. Talk to people you trust and ask them what makes you amazing. And then if there was one or two things I could work on those. I would say do that. I would also say be really careful with what you're not good at. And if you're not good at something, throw it away. So if you're not good at web design, don't try to do it. Get somebody else that does. Don't waste your time for something that you're not good at to get okay at. You are there to be fantastic about something. So get good at what you're fantastic at and let other people do your accounting or do your web design or do your PR or do whatever, right? Don't waste your time doing things that you're not good at. And it might be that as a brand new entrepreneur that you don't have a budget. So barter, help other people, be a buddy and get a little group together where you're going to help each other. And it doesn't have to be formal. I found that the informal groups have done the best for me. The people that I know that I can trust that will help me and that I can help, those are the ones that work for me. And then go off and do it. Go off and be great.
Fantastic. And I like the way you talked about outsource your weaknesses and focus on what you're doing best, focus on your talents, ask other people what your talents are in case you're not sure. And of course, get rid of things you don't do well, like website design or accounting. Shout out to our mutual friend, Rachel Ott at Varga Girl Design for that website work. But, it's so important to know your strengths and delegate your weaknesses. I hate accounting. I'm bad with numbers. I'm bad with math. I shove it all off to the accountant. God bless them. I don't have to deal with it, right? And that allows me to focus on what I think I do best. So what you've offered is really good advice.
And I guess one last thing is whatever you're good at, keep researching. Like, don't stop reading, don't stop exercising it, don't stop studying it. You should see my library. My library is massive, but I'm always reading stuff. I'm not the smartest man in the room. I'm never the smartest man in the room, but there's a lot that I know, and maybe you should edit that part out. But I'm always learning. Like, I'm 20 years into this being on my own, and I'm still learning from other people. And I love that.
You're a subject matter expert. No shame in that. That's key. And I think you've touched upon one of the great joys of entrepreneurship. That's lifelong learning. If you want to learn for the rest of your life, be an entrepreneur, because there's no end to what you can acquire. Business skills, business knowledge, subject matter expertise, all that stuff. Perfect. What a great answer. Thank you, Bruce. Such a pleasure to have you here and to get your story. Thank you very much.
My pleasure. It's been amazing. It's been fun.
Before you go, can you give us an email address or a website or a LinkedIn page? How can someone reach you?
Sure. The best way is at my website. So it's brucemayhewconsulting.com. Bruce is in Bruce, Mayhew consulting.com. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on Insta. I don't answer anything that comes in through Facebook. Facebook is my personal place. It's all Bruce. It's not business. Don't even try it. But
I love it. Go to the website, brucemayhewconsulting.com for sure. And to everyone listening, thank you for taking time to join me here today on the Unsure Entrepreneur podcast. I hope you come back again often. That's it for now.
That's it for this episode of the Unsure Entrepreneur podcast. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss other candid conversations with small business owners. And be sure to check us out at unsure-entrepreneur.com.